Hi there.
I
Barbara, you always shame me into turning on my video.
used to have to teach over Zoom sometimes. Luckily, I retired before that became the whole deal.
Before that became the norm.
Yeah. You get used to it.
You do.
I think actually we're extremely lucky. Well, for me, it's necessary, but it's been much safer given what's been going on. And I think it gives access more easily to a lot of people. And
Yes.
yeah, and I think it makes them feel more comfortable.
Yes, that's true. Once they get used to it, yeah.
Once they get used to it, they're more comfortable.
Yeah. And selfishly, you have no idea how many airplane rides it saved me.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes. Where is it that you go all the time?
Wherever the client is.
But do you have certain sort of fixed clients?
I generally have a client for maybe 2 to 3 months. And then I turn it over to the guys that are the team. I shouldn't say guys, that's unfair, but the team that's going to actually, do the long, hard work of it.
Mhm.
They'll be there for a year or more.
Oh, and so then what they're producing, the product is?
They are doing process improvements in manufacturing companies, typically with some sort of automation, but not always.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm like the upfront guy that goes and figures it all out and gives them a blueprint, and then off they go.
And they actually, is it a report they produce or is it the actual?
No, it's whatever, whatever improvement we're doing, whatever it happens to be. Like
So it's
right now,
engineering. So it's engineering kind of stuff.
no, it's more business process,
Oh,
lean improvements.
yep.
The company we're working with right now was the owners of this new company bought it out from a much, much, much larger company. So all of the support systems, everything is going away in December.
Oh dear.
So we have to like build the whole business process and the whole support network and how do I run the floor and all the rest of that
Oh,
by
interesting.
December.
Those are big projects. Yeah.
So
Anyway, thank you. I had not known what.
So anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
All right, who do we have here? We have like lots of people.
Lots of people.
Lots of people.
I'm back.
Yes, Peter's back.
I was traveling.
Where were you, Peter?
I had to go to Atlanta for literally a touchdown in Atlanta. I was there for a couple-hour meeting, and then I went to the east coast of Florida.
Huh.
So I manage real estate for Capital One,
Oh,
and I take care of their cafes around the country. So I had to go. I was with actually a bunch of leaders from Capital One touring some cafes.
oh,
A
interesting.
cafe means a bank branch in
A bank branch, yeah, but a bank branch that also serves coffee. I mean, it like has a coffee bar. We have 5 here in Boston. Actually, our closest one was in Linfield that we closed not that long ago. It just, I guess, it didn't fit the right location. We're getting ready to open a new one at 711 Boylston Street. We have one at the Ink Block, one at Seaport, one at Assembly Row. So if you're going to pick up Mike's Pastries, you just walk into the cafe next door, get yourself a good cup of coffee, and but
Well, I support you online and I tap you. I like the card.
Yeah,
It's a good card.
there actually, I managed real estate for banks for over 30 years. I started basically with Fleet. I was with Sovereign, then Santander, and now Capital One. And I have to say that Capital One is probably, people-wise, probably the best bank. I mean, I don't know products and things like that, but I will tell you that they think about their customers. They're literally the best bank that I've worked with.
Peter, be careful. Michelle Capano is on the call.
Yeah, I know. And she's at Santander, right?
Yeah.
And I was at Santander for 9 years. Yeah, I think I was there for 9 years. So
It's fine.
Santander is dangerous because it's right next to Monster Cookies.
Yeah. Well, we're right next to Mike's Pastry in Assembly
Oh,
Row. So
oh
that's
dear.
a dangerous spot too.
Very dangerous. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
So it is, I don't know what, 6:35, and I'm kind of like counting on fingers.
And
so
we're hungry.
Yeah.
Now we're all hungry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all hungry. Anyway, so present from the Finance Committee is or are Bob Vanderslice, Barbara Beatty, Deborah Warren, Peter Barba. Dana is here. Oh, no, wait, hit the arrow again. Julie is here. And actually, there's a bunch of welcome guests. So Tony and Allison, Jeff Lewis, Austin Antrim is with us. Did I say Austin Antrim? It's hard to tell as I'm scrolling back and forth. Nancy Catalmo, Michelle Capano. I saw Lynn. There's Lynn. And that's that. So Finance Committee meeting is in order. Julie, minutes?
Yes, you should have all received the minutes from March 21st. Any comments, edits, changes?
Well, before I say I want to move that we accept them, they were really excellent. I mean, they always are, but really good summaries of what were some complicated discussions.
Thank you.
And you did a great job highlighting the important parts, getting the main points in there, but in a very understandable way. So thanks. So I move that we accept. Is that the word I say? Accept?
Yes.
Yes.
Accept the minutes.
Second? Someone? Anyone?
I second them. Okay, Beatty,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Barba,
Abstain?
Sheehan.
Sheehan, aye.
Okay, thank you. That's 5 and 1. Thank you. And then we have a second set from March 23rd. I did make one change. I wrote Van Ter Slice instead of Van Der Slice.
Well, that's a new one.
That's semantics.
Typo. And edits, changes, comments,
Good.
motion?
Move to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So, Beatty,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Charmy, yes, Barba,
Abstain?
Sheehan,
Aye.
McMacken.
Aye.
So that's 6, 1 abstain. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So we move on to CPC.
I spent a lot of time with this committee over the past few months. I can't say enough about what a great job they do with processing and analyzing and assisting the applicants. And they're very thorough. So I appreciate their time. So thank you, Lynn and committee. Nancy Austin, I see you here.
And
Go ahead.
Julie did send along via email the summary of it. If it helps,
Yeah,
I-
I got it.
I
Yep.
can put that up in the window here if you give me a minute, but while I'm doing that, Lynn, I guess the floor is yours.
Lynn, you're muted.
How's this?
Good.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for having us here once again. And I'm very pleased that members of my committee are joining us tonight. I think I heard that Austin was here, Nancy Cantalmo. Don't know if I've got anyone else. Well, I
I've been
guess,
here.
Paul Spurn, great.
I've been here,
great.
but I'm eating dinner, so I'm going to turn off my camera.
Yeah, that's nice of you. Thank you. Thank you. But other members of the committee who, our committee is 7 strong. I am privileged to chair it with Paul Spurn as clerk. Paul is appointed at large by the Board of Selectmen. Also at large are James Stolen and Ellen Goldberg. Representing the Housing Authority is David Wilson. And representing Open Space and Recreation is Nancy Cantalmo. And Austin also, I believe, is another at-large appointee. We are looking for people to join our committee. We have invited the planning board to put forth a name or two, and the Recreation Commission, which is separate from Open Space, would be also another possible another group that could be represented on our committee. But for now, we are 7 strong. I sit on this committee and have done so. I'm kind of a dinosaur because I've been on from the very beginning, and I represent the Historical Commission. This year, we had a number of very good applicants. Just to give you a context for this, we have in front of us $494,279 worth of community preservation related costs to review with you. We have 2 applicants that are providing match of just over $7,600. And we're looking at a total project cost of $501,889,000. Based on our projected grants funds available based on our 3% surcharge, we're looking at from the town of Nahant's surcharge, $278,132. We are projecting an 85% state match this year because we've got a very, very strong word from the Community Preservation Coalition that is likely to be 100% match. So we're just a little bit below that. So potentially we have $514,544 to allocate. Our general reserve at this point is $169,664, and our housing reserve will be $53,098. So that just gives you an overall context. So we have fewer draws on our amount of money by about $10,000. So that money will go into the general reserve. But before I proceed any further on this, any questions about what I've just given in terms of context, in terms of the financial framework? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
What was the housing reserve again?
$53,098.
Is that for just this year or in total covering the last several years?
That's for last year and this year, Dana. It's an astute question. We had no application this year. So that relates to housing. So we had about $8,000 in the account, and we've added about $6,000 in the account from last year, and we've added $49,000 to it. So that's how that's that stands at present.
Thank you, Lynn. Just this is, I guess, is a process question. Since you didn't get any grant applications for a housing initiative,
Mhm.
the committee itself create one? Your committee, the Community Preservation Committee?
Could we apply to ourselves for a grant?
Right.
I suppose we could.
Sounds kind of funny, but
It does sound a little bit funny. I think it in view of the fact that there's an active housing production committee now engaged in looking at the housing issues and needs and possibilities in Nahant, we are anticipating that we will be seeing applications coming in as a result of that study. But we're certainly encouraging that study to go through its process to a logical conclusion and a report to the town.
and thanks, Lynn, for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
And am I indeed sharing a screen? Can you see what I've?
I do see it, and I'd love to be able to run through it unless there's any
Right, so-
further questions.
Yeah, is that helpful to you?
It's very helpful.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to guide me a little bit. Tell me when to go page down or beep at me like they used to do with the film strips and.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a lovely thought. Thank you. So this is actually our standard start. I don't know where we're going to be in terms of the articles. So as soon as you assign us an article number, then we'll obviously fill in what is now a bunch of question marks with the article.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
21.
sorry, I was trying to do something else. There is an article,
Article
and I
21.
don't remember the number. Sounds like Julie's on top of it.
21.
Article 21. Okay, great. I can edit it on my other screen as we're talking. So this is our first standard. We tell everybody in this place that 10% of the revenues get applied to 3 categories. So open space, historic resources, and community housing. And then we sort of will roll down to our first recommendation, which is to appropriate $10,000 from fiscal year 2024 Community Preservation Fund estimated revenues for administrative and operating expenses of the Community Preservation Committee. And I won't read the supporting statement out loud unless you want me to, but I can tell you that this will cover expenses such as our help in printing the town warrant, as well as the dues that we pay to the Community Preservation Coalition and other incidental expenses. We do have the ability to help applicants, we hope well in advance of the application date, with technical advice if so requested. And this could be in the form of engineering or architectural assessments or other consultant assessments that would help prepare an adequate budget as well as a defined scope for the applicant's actual application. Any questions about that idea? Okay. So we actually are presenting these articles in the order that they were received with the applications, which were due at the end of January. The first application came in from a citizens group that had been formed around the idea of enhancing the Flash Road tennis courts with improvements for the playing of pickleball as part of the idea of really promoting recreation for all ages in the town of Nahant. So the applicant, which was led by David Aldrich with a volunteer committee, had really spent a great deal of time thinking about the application, researching what would be appropriate in terms of improvements and still permit the tennis courts to be used for the playing of tennis. There's a great deal of sensitivity about doing this in such a way that allows everybody to participate And that will include things like a reservation system, for instance, as well as lighting for evening playing, windscreens, sunscreens, a movable net, and so on. Their initial application came in based on the research of talking with vendors and subcontractors. But upon consultation with Tony Barletta and the town administration, we counseled the applicants, which are applying for this on publicly owned property, that they would have to adhere to public procurement requirements and prevailing rate requirements. Zach Taylor was able to do some research on what this would mean in terms of the budget. And so that increased this application from the initial application to what you see before you today, which is a sum of $71,720. The pickleball supporters are contributing $6,610 towards this project. And as I said, this will be a series, this will be done in such a way that tennis can still be played, pickleball can be played, but there's going to have to be management and administration of this through a reservation system that needs to be approved by the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen. I'm sure that there will be questions about this grant application, and I welcome hearing them.
I have a question, Lynn. I've read somewhere that the noise caused by pickleball playing can be quite irritating. Now, I don't think we have any neighbors particularly close, but do you think that might be an issue?
Well, Deborah, sound is going to be, it's going to be hard to say until it actually happens. Although I do believe pickleball players have been engaged in playing on these tennis courts with a temporary setup that they had put in effect last summer with the town administrator's approval. And so I don't know. I have heard what you are describing, that it can be, an audible experience.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Other questions or comments?
Yes, Lynn, this is Dana again. Back to the question of the cost. Is the reservation system a big part of that? Because the costs that were talked about before this grant was submitted, were like less than half of this. So I'm just curious, what's the big 2 or 3 items that are causing this to be an $80,000 project?
Yeah, I would say that it's the lighting in particular. I think it's the line painting. I think it's, windscreens and so on.
Got it.
I would think the lighting is a big part of it. So Zach Taylor sort of looked at the work that David had done with his committee, which was very thorough and very thoughtfully put together. It was the best application of the group that we received, and said, okay, these are the areas that we may be running into the edge with public procurement and prevailing rates. And so he came back to us with the recommendations for the increases. We felt that it was prudent to increase the grant application. So in fact, it could be accomplished according to the town's requirements, and to achieve the goals of the volunteer group that had put this together, that apparently have, a strong sort of base of a strong following for this game.
Right. I mean, I think that's good. It certainly sounds like the people involved have done their due diligence on the cost. One thing about the lighting, I understand that park closes at 9 o'clock. So when would the lighting be used? Up until 9, and then it goes off? Is that how it works?
Well, this will be under the able hand of the town administrator, who I see on the screen, And I will defer any questions about the duration of lighting to him.
Yeah, Dana, I just wanted to say that Lynn captured that perfectly. The CPC asked the town to review the estimates in the application. And we did a deeper dive. I think a lot of the missed elements had to do with prevailing wage requirements. Also, an unknown on the extent of the painting that's going to be required. We don't know if adding lines to the paint that was put down last year will hold, or if the entire, tennis court will need to be repainted with lines included in it. So there's a huge, variation there. And then the lighting is the biggest chunk of it. The cost of underground conduit and poles and lights. As for your last question, that would, I don't know if there's a set time currently for when those turn off, but we would have the capability of, the lights could be turned on by the push of a button and they would automatically turn off at a certain time. So we have that ability. We would have that capability and just program it according to whatever, rules or regs or public comment we get related to the usage of the park.
I just wanted to end with a comment, Tony. This has been a lot of discussion around town. I think this is a worthy grant, and the only thing I'm wondering about was the cost, but you've explained it. I appreciate it. And this seems like it'll take care of the recreational needs of the town. And I have high confidence that the town administrator will make this thing work. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also it's an up to amount,
Right.
so doesn't necessarily mean we'll spend all of it.
May I ask a question? How is the reservation process going to work? Because that's going to have to go on for years, I'm assuming. How is that going to work?
And
So
will
that's
that become a town expense or a ongoing CPC expense?
That's what I meant.
all right. So the reservation system that's included in their application is a request. It is not that has been undecided. We don't use reservation systems for any of our other parks. Typically, we use a permit application process for league usage of our recreational spaces. So whether that be the softball fields on the hot road or the Little League field or soccer or, other leagues like that, they submit an application to the town and request, usage of a court for a certain amount of hours, certain amount of days a week, that sort of thing. That's our typical procedure. We have not, engaged in a conversation with the group that submitted this application to really talk about how that will work. So while it's in the application and while there's funding associated with it, it's still up for discussion as to whether we're going to employ some sort of electronic reservation system as requested in the application.
Right, and a follow-up question, when we were talking about pickleball last year, I remember it being in something like the $10,000 to $15,000 ballpark, and now we're in the $75,000 ballpark. What happened?
Well, we were talking about just paint and maybe nets. This application that came into the CPC from the group includes lighting, which is a huge expense, and other elements like some shade screens and wind screens.
Mhm.
And will
Yeah,
this
it
be
is more
the only-
complicated.
Will this be the only lighted recreation area in town?
No, there's
Well-
lighting, there's existing lighting on the basketball courts. So just remember that this is tennis courts on one end, basketball courts on the other end. There are two large existing pole lights that illuminate the basketball court. They don't go far enough to illuminate the tennis court. There is also, I should also mention that Zach, I think wisely suggested an allowance, which is now in this budget for engineering, coordination, procurement. So there's soft cost, if you will, also associated with this that will help cover the town.
I have a question. It'll be either probably Tony. Does anyone have a feel for what at 80 grand? What's the cost of an incremental freestanding pickleball court? We forfeit a tennis court, or we have to share it, pickleball and tennis. And it just seems to me as though we're fairly close to the price of a freestanding pickleball court. And in the event we move to that, then what we're doing becomes a sunk cost.
Which
It's
one of
really
us wants
hard.
to jump into that pool, Tony?
Well, it's hard to, there isn't a simple answer, because, you know, a lot of the costs associated with building or rebuilding the basketball and tennis court through CPC funding over the last couple of years, you know, had to do with, you know, it was an existing facility that we were rebuilding, but there was also drainage improvements. So it's hard to use that as a guide, because you're talking about building something completely from scratch. Where is it going to
Yeah.
be located? You know, and but generally speaking, I think we spent, Lynn, do you recall how much we spent on flashing?
I'm working on it right now,
Three
quite
some-
honestly.
Three something?
I think it was like $290,000 and it took two appropriations. We went
Yeah.
in with one appropriation, it went to bid, it wasn't enough, and then we had to go back and get additional money.
So call it 300, and half of that was the basketball court, but it was also a pre-existing facility. So
Yeah.
there was already, you know, some subgrade included. So call it 150 grand for, you know, just the tennis side of the facility.
So we spent 150 grand to upgrade to current standard tennis courts, and now we're going to spend an additional 80 converting them so that they're acceptable for pickleball as well.
Well,
Hey,
again,
that doesn't make any sense.
again, it's, again, you know, it's a tough, it's an up to dollar amount. It is it's an up to dollar amount. So we don't know, you know, painting, if we're able to just add lines to the existing court, it won't be that expensive at all. But we don't know if adding lines, if it'll, that paint, you know, you might need to lay it all down together at once. You may not be able to just add another layer of paint on top of it. It's a specific type of court paint that, you know, it's just a little bit different. So if we're able to just add lines, you know, adding lines is gonna be very cheap. Adding lights is where it gets a little bit more expensive. We didn't include lights in our original CPC application because there were existing poles with existing lights. So that wasn't, you know, if we had added lights to the
Yeah.
Flash Road project before, we'd be well above $300,000.
But
Yeah.
the lights are adequate for playing tennis.
No,
Right, that's my question.
No, they're not.
No, they illuminate the basketball court
Basketball.
and probably a portion of the tennis court. I don't think they illuminate the entire tennis court.
So part of this would be useful for the tennis players as well.
Yes, exactly,
Definitely.
exactly. It would
And that
act as
includes-
equalizing.
That includes not, this is Nancy Cantamo, not only the lights, but also the sunscreen and the windscreen, which benefits the tennis players and was not as part of the original tennis courts.
Yes.
But and then while they're being used, they're mutually exclusive.
That's why a reservation system of some sort needs to be, was part of this application. In this case, they thought of it as an electronic system, but that's going to be up to the town administrator to determine along with the Board of Selectmen.
And switching from one to another, from pickleball to tennis or vice versa, is that something that the general public can do, or is that something that requires, I
Yeah,
don't know,
the
DPW to come down and do?
so
No,
the
those are
question.
movable. That's immovable.
Well,
yeah,
that wasn't
so-
the question. The question is who's responsible to move it?
The people playing the game.
Players can.
Yeah, so if you envision a tennis court, the pickleball lines are actually perpendicular to the tennis line. So it's a rolling net. So you can have one full pickleball court on each side of the tennis net. So you would they're basically nets on wheels that roll off to the side. So if you want to play pickleball, you just roll the net in place. And if you want to play tennis, you roll them out of place.
So the base event is going to be tennis, meaning that people going down to play tennis are not going to have to put away pickleball stuff that's set up. And I only say this only because pickleball is predominantly an adult game, whereas we may have a lot of children, or we do have children that will go down and play tennis. I mean, I'm a little concerned about the reservation part of it, meaning, young kids, they don't know what they want to do in the next 5 minutes, never mind the next 5 days. And they may want to pick up their tennis rackets and go play tennis. And when they get there, there's pickleball happening and they're, not able to. And I'm also concerned that if, they're down there playing tennis, that they don't get squeezed out by people wanting to play pickleball. If there's a couple of kids playing tennis, they should be allowed to play tennis because these were tennis courts. So I'm just a little concerned about the whole reservation piece of it, because kids aren't generally going to fill out reservations to go play tennis next Thursday.
Yeah, I agree. And from my understanding, I failed tennis, and my mother told me I would never get a husband unless I learned. And at any rate, as I recall, particularly from watching that cool movie on the Williams sisters, matches can go on for kind of like, you can't expect how long a match is going to take. And so what you're talking about, Peter, is that if people have got a pickleball appointment but your tennis match may still be going, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess that there's that aspect of it. The other thing is, I do know, because I was on the recreation committee a number of years ago, that the recreation committee does actually have, I shouldn't say they still have it, because I don't know. I haven't been on the committee in a while, but they used to have tennis lessons. So, in the summertime and I don't remember, I believe it's from 9 to noon at least, when they have when the town recreation program is happening, is that time going to be blocked out so that the recreation program can have their tennis lessons? I mean, things like that need to be answered, I guess.
And
that would be a prime example of why why a reservation system would make sense. So that if you have, recreation programs that are geared for training tennis and so on, that's blocked out. I mean, and that is, I think, going to be a matter of administration and management. There's no question about it.
Yep.
I don't know, Bob, if you want me to try to put on the screen an example of how this would lay out, but I could do that.
So
It would be
the
helpful.
tennis people will have to sign up also too, right?
Let me just jump in here. Usage of our recreational facilities, permitted use, reserving hours for particular usage goes through the town hall. It goes through my office. This is just a request from this group to do some sort of electronic reservation system. Whether it's funded, whether this gets funded and approved at town meeting, it's still gonna go through the town hall
Right.
and through that process. I share a lot of your concerns that you raised. We don't utilize an electronic reservation system for any other open space or recreational facility in the town. And it works, you know, and for the most part, you know, our youth or anyone interested in utilizing the facilities, there's always plenty of time and opportunity to do so. It rarely ever is there a conflict. So, you know, I don't want to get hung up on this reservation system as to whether or not we should, you know, advance the courts so that pickleball can utilize the space as well. I think that we'll be able to solve any of those concerns. And like I said, I share a lot of the concerns that you've raised. I don't think that, I don't know if that's something that the town is interested in doing, but I don't think it should hold up, you know, the opportunity to include pickleball as a dual use, you know, facility.
Can I get back to the lighting for just a minute? First of all, this is going to be a big piece of the cost. Do you have a ballpark on how much that might be? Or, and the other
Yes.
question, you do.
Mhm.
Yeah, Zach had,
So if
Zach-
you'll just allow me, I'm just pulling it
Go
up
ahead.
right now.
okay.
That's all
great,
right.
yeah.
Give me, just
A
give me a
lot of it
second.
came from, a lot of it, while you're looking it up, Lynn, a lot of that came from, we had explored replacing and improving the lighting at the Little League field this past year, hoping to come for a CPC article this during this process, but we weren't able to get it together in time. So we utilized a lot of that information from that process to estimate what the cost of adding lighting to the tennis court side of this would be.
So this estimate is not, this is not an engineering estimate. This is something earlier than that. This
Yes.
this is not based on quotes from vendors.
No,
Correct.
it's not. And generally, we do not see that for especially publicly funded projects. We
Understood.
see, informed estimates. And so Zach took the information that Dave and his team had put together and then looked at that and said, okay, this number needs to include a prevailing rate assumption. Everyone on this committee is aware of prevailing rates, I assume? Yes? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what then Zach gave input on that and responded, and sent that along to us.
You know what might help, if nothing else, kind of with the optics, is the way this is worded. It sounds like it's entirely pickleball, when in fact it's in tennis improvements as well as pickleball. And if that could be incorporated into the wording, that I think that would help.
Okay, so that I appreciate that comment, because we say to upgrade the existing Flash Road public tennis courts with improvements for the playing of pickleball. And we can certainly add in things like the fact that the lighting will actually enhance that ability.
Right, and the screens and shade and sunscreens too.
Yep, sure, all of that.
That's a good point.
Yes, that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
And I do have one more question back on that pesky lighting. Is there likely to be a range of options in terms of, I don't know, quality or quantity of light or how much we spend? Or is it really going to be something that's fixed, a binary, we get it or we don't?
What do you
Light
mean?
light standards and and their controls vary very much in price. There's no question about that. So I think that the approach that Dave was taking when he first put this together was to actually do something that was economical but adequate and nothing too fancy. And so I think that's the same spirit that with which Zach Taylor then looked at it and said, yep, let's make it adequate, not too fancy. It'll be LED lighting, which of course is, a low energy source. And I would be on some controls, so they're not on all the time. They're only on when the courts are being used. And again, that's something that we leave to our poor, benighted, but ever patient town administrator.
Well, it doesn't sound like a bad investment considering that it works for the tennis as well.
Yeah. I think, and thank you for that suggestion in terms of the writing of this article. We will certainly, tune that up accordingly. Other suggestions or comments?
I would just say that last year, this had came up in conversation and, the town had voiced a recommendation that this group come forward with a proposal that was focused on a dual use instead of, a pickleball section and a tennis section. And that's what they did. So we're very pleased with that and supportive of it.
Right. So shall we move on? This one is easier. Trust me. This is an application from the Nahant Historical Society for the purposes of conserving and digitizing badly degraded historical records, specifically the Nahant school registers from 1963 to 1968. And this is the second of a two-part application process that last year they did the first part of this records conservation, and this would be the second part of this. These records are used for all sorts of research, including genealogical research and so on. I think the supporting statement, which I hope you've had a chance to take a look at, does a very nice job of describing the broad realm of value of conserving these documents.
I have a question. Well, I'm assuming from what you're saying, then they're searchable. They'll be searchable online.
Yep.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? This, by the way, goes under the historic preservation category, while the foregoing is a great example of the recreation and open space category.
On the historical application, does this digitize all of the records, or will this be a continual, a recurring cost?
I think this just digitizes this segment of the documents. I'm not sure who I'm hearing this from, but this is specific. Yeah, this is specific to this particular 1963 through 68 documents. These were very badly water stained. I'm not sure quite how that happened. It happened when they were at the Johnson School.
Yeah, they were very, very heavy with mold, and they had to be conserved. So there was just a stretch of 9 volumes in all. And this is the last 5, the second half.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
Great. Thanks.
Moving on.
Well, let me just also say, having just been searching on the National Archives site, the federal one. Whoa, genealogy is big. I mean, the federal National Archives, which are the big archives, right, for everything. Woo, I mean, they've got all of these subparts on helping people do genealogy. And I found at least 5 or 6 private genealogy sites that plug into those. So that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And a very big deal. People are really into searching anything they can find on genealogy. So I think it's going to be used.
I think
Thanks.
so.
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you. Moving on. The next one is to appropriate $46,500 from fiscal year 2024. This is under the open space category for continued restoration work at the Fort Ruckman section of the east slope of Bailey's Hill. And I hope some of you have, I hope all of you have actually had a walk over to Bailey's Hill and see what the first segment of funding, which was appropriated, I think, 2 years ago, that was $41,000. But Zach Taylor and his team have done a wonderful job of cleaning up this east slope and getting it ready for the next stage, which is actually the planting work. Because what we really are trying, what the Open Space and Recreation Committee has envisioned here, along with the DPW, is to actually use this as a model for what could be done for the rest of the Bailey's Hill area and other areas in town where there's actually selective removal of invasive species, and then the replanting of native grasses and understory plantings that can actually then, restore, if you will, the ecological integrity of this site. So we think this is a pretty exciting application. It was put together with the Open Space Committee, which is being, which has been, very forward thinking in this, with input from Zach Taylor. Any comments about this one? Well, hearing none, we'll then go on to the next application from Open Space. Trish Aldrich is now chairing this, and this has been a very active group. The next application is for $29,000 from Open Space for the implementation of recommendations from a master plan that was prepared a year ago, or this past year. So last year we gave them a planning grant to set the standards and guidelines and actually best practices for the Lodge Park portion of East Point. And then this is for the actual implementation. So it does things like actually use natural plantings to create, if you will, suggested ways for people to use Lodge Park. Those of you who are adventuresome, like I used to be, would go down steep slopes to get down close to the water, maybe try a little trek over the natural bridge, things like that. And so this is really designed to help people enjoy East Point, but be careful and safe in doing so. And this one has, oh, by the way, it has $1,000 being contributed to this from SWIM, which is a partner in this whole enterprise.
I have a question, which, does this, the signage and the upgrading of these little trails, you're taking the aesthetics of the wildness of the place, I'm sure, under consideration.
Thank you, Deborah. In fact, the master plan that was prepared with a consultant whose name I'm forgetting right now, but Nancy Cantelmo will plug that in momentarily, was a Mass Audubon consultant. And so he was really cognizant of first assessing the ecological and geological and the sort of terrain issues, and then thinking about really sensitive suggestions to do it quietly and so not to interfere with the natural beauty of the place, but to help guide people for greater protection and understanding. So yes, there will be some, interpretive signage in the form of wayfinding signs. An example of a wayfinding sign is what we see in front of the life savings station, kind of a semi-table like sign. So it's kind of low. You can look down at it while you're looking out at the view, for instance. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just hoping that it wouldn't look too, and from what I know of you guys and your work, it's not going to end up looking manicured and like a museum. So
Yeah.
that was my point.
Thank you. I think that's a good reminder. Yes, it needs to really feel natural and not parked, quite honestly.
Thanks.
Can I just say that the DPW has been doing fantastic work along with us, and actually Zach really loves to do this kind of work, and he's really very good at it. And there's a huge difference, as those of you know, between what Lodge Park looks like and the vast overgrown stuff at Bailey's Hill. And so our work at Lodge Park is much more safety and signage and replanting, because he's done such a fabulous job of taking away the invasives and still making it manage to look like as natural as possible. The wayfinding signs are pretty important, because if you don't know how to get to Lodge Park and you're standing in the parking lot, it's not really obvious. So we want to help people, know where to get up the hill and turn left to get to Lodge Park.
Also, now I know because of Audubon and the Thicket, where I go a lot, they did that to make it handicapped accessible. And Lynn, you were talking correctly. That's a steep hill. And I actually have a little trouble with it now. So is there going to be some way that this is going to be a little bit more accessible? Is that in any way part of the plan?
You phrased an interesting point, Barbara. Right now, our easement across the northeastern property is kind of along that roadway and up that sort of steeper section that I think you're referring to get
Yeah.
to the top.
Yep.
There has been a practice of allowing people at times, and I'm not quite sure how that is arranged, but there are handicap parking spaces up at the very top of the table, if you will, of Lodge Park. But, I hear what you're saying. I don't think at this point we have the ability to do anything about that easement other than live with it.
So if you look, Barbara, at the Bailey's Hill section, one of the things we hope to accomplish by making a flatter area sort of halfway up that slope was to allow people, maybe in wheelchairs, maybe in golf carts, to get a higher view out of that bay. And I think that will be really helpful to people who may not have been able to get up there in other circumstances.
Excellent. Good to hear. Thank you. So it is something that's, as everything evolves, I want to make sure that it's in people's minds as part of a bigger picture, but without it becoming, and I think Deborah's point is very important, without it changing it looking natural, because the natural beauty is so important also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to keep in mind, good to keep in front of us. So shall we move on to the next one? Speaking of natural, Bob, can you just slide down a little bit further so we can see the full article number 6? Yes. So this one is from the town of Nahant, and it turns us to the Kelly Green area, which some of us still think of as Bear Pond. But this is a large area of open space in Nahant, and Nahant, as we said in the supporting statement, is fortunate to preserve approximately 30% of its land as open space, and Kelly Greens is a big, big part of it. This is actually for the planting of trees at Kelly's Greens and the restoration of 3 pedestrian bridges. Those of you who have walked by recently have seen some activity with earth moving and so on as and some dredging of the ditches as the Tony and his team have been implementing some of the recommendations that had been developed as part of the lowlands water management study. This is all about improving our drainage and therefore actually improving the householders who have properties next to the golf course in the lowlands area. One of the things that really helps with actually water management, in fact, and the and the sort of ecological value is the planting of trees. So a number of trees had kind of reached the end of their lives in the Kelly Greens areas, notably some of the willows. And so this will actually now plant 10 to 15, 2.5 caliber, 2.5 inch caliber trees in, strategic locations, working with the tree task force, the DPW, and the Kelly Greens management team, and the Conservation Commission. So there's a lot of players in this. And similarly, with that dredging project, it has actually sort of exposed the fact that we have 3 pedestrian bridges that are in poor condition, and this grant will help, basically restore those bridges. So this is part of an ongoing effort for Kelly Greens to be better managed, to be more ecologically sound, and as I said, benefit the sort of neighboring property owners abutting this area.
Could I just say that the for those of you who don't know, the tree task force was something that we had to implement to become a tree city. And it consists of the DPW working with some citizens interested in this. And then they also consult with our town arborist. And they go around doing lots of cool things like taking surveys and figuring out which trees are old and how to work with our town trees. So it's an exciting idea, and they're helping out in this area too.
Thanks, Nancy. That's great to be reminded of the tree city part of this. So
Yeah, I'm proud to say that my wife sits on that committee.
good, good. Yep, plant trees. It helps in lots of things, including carbon sequestration.
Actually, it's a question on trees, but it's a different conversation completely. But is there anything about tree height? I know we talked about that last year. I can't remember what actually came of that.
I'm not sure, Judy. I'm sorry. I don't know the conversation that you're referring to.
When we were talking about that, does anybody else on the committee remember we were talking about having a tree committee and, tree height, while we plant trees, that it doesn't obstruct people's views? Does that ring a bell to anybody?
I remember we talked about that briefly, about, where planting trees that will block somebody's view. We did briefly.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't think these will block anybody's views. These are mostly willows, if I'm not mistaken.
And they're
Oh,
in
yeah.
the golf course.
In the golf course, so it doesn't matter at all. No, I just wanted to ask if anybody remembered that conversation. Thank you.
Sure.
This number 6 is in which category?
This is in the open space category.
And does stormwater improvements qualify in that?
We believe so, yes.
Okay.
But this is the dredging portion of this is being funded by the town itself. So our part of this, is conducting those, is reconstructing the pedestrian bridges. So that allows walkers, golf players to actually cross areas. Otherwise, you're jumping over it, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the next one, number 7, is $20,000 from Community Preservation this year, 2024, for the planning and implementation of the town's rights of way. Many of you have heard me on several occasions advocating for funds for the rights of way project, which was probably initiated, the first grant, I think, was probably initiated about 15 years ago. And this it was all about surveying, doing the legal research and the surveying and all of that was necessary to reestablish specifically the town rights of way, which mainly are about getting access to the water. And there's a number of them on Little Nahant that when Mark Cullinan was the town administrator, that were all identified and clarified. We now are at the point where there's the sort of challenging job of actually implementing the public access to those rights of way, because unknowingly or knowingly property owners have encroached on some of those rights of way. So this will add to, there's about, I think about $9,000 of accumulated funds from past years. There were two past appropriations that will add to this pot of $20,000 for actual implementation. And that will include the town administrator working with the abutting property owners to clarify, the boundaries, and then installing appropriately designed signage to notify the public of those rights of way and their ability to use them.
Lynn, do you have a map? Because I'm guessing, being someone whose property is on the water, I'm guessing that people are going to want to know where the rights of way are.
Mm-hmm. I think there would be, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
So again, the town administrator has this in his, with the Board of Selectmen will have this in their hands, and this will be up to them to actually provide the public information. And certainly a map or some kind of online production could be certainly part of that signage or notification effort. It's a good idea.
I appreciate this effort in that Little Nahant is a lot of the accesses to Little Nahant have been taken over, fenced over, unable to access. And so this is something that I think I brought up probably 8 years ago, because it's very frustrating that you can't even get down to the next level because the access has been pulled. So I'm anxious to see something come from this.
I agree. I think this is an excellent that it's going to happen. And I'm wondering, Lynn, does this include, and I can't remember, the circumambulation also or not?
Yeah, no, that's the perambulation.
The perambulation.
That's something that goes back for a long time. No, this, I shouldn't say no or yes. This could, Little Nahant and portions of Big Nahant had what was called the perambulation, which was an annual event to keep those paths open, because you really had to actually demonstrate the actual usage. In Big Nahant, sections of that have actually eroded and fallen off. And the same thing is true in Little Nahant. Long ago, there actually was a boardwalk around Little Nahant and portions of Big Nahant, and that had collapsed and gone a long time ago. So I can't tell you exactly, Barbara, what the town administration is going to sort of pick up next on this, but this is going to give them the money to do the planning and the public outreach and the engagement with citizens and property owners to make this happen.
And Tony, I think that at town meeting, there's going to be a request to see a map.
So the idea, this is, I'm lucky enough to be the next town administrator to pick up where this project was left off with the previous town administrator. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. The way I look at rights of ways, and that's not even just 5-foot paths to the ocean, so to speak. Sometimes that's even what you might think is a street. Is a paper road that, you know, so there's a lot of different, every single one of these items are unique.
Yeah.
And I look at it as a 3-phased approach. The first phase is title research. The second phase is on-site surveying. And then the third phase is, you know, reactivating the right of way if it needs to be reactivated. What we've through actually the selectmen have been you know, really pushing is an additional element of user friendliness, public education. That's on the ground signage, but it's also some sort of mapping or you know, availability of understanding on our website, you know, something that makes it easy for residents to understand where do the rights of ways exist, how do you access them, and we've looked at a lot of other communities on how they've done that. I would say Little Nahant coastal right of ways have gone through phase 1 and 2. They've had title research,
Right.
they've had on-site surveying, and some of them are, one of which right now is undergoing, you know, phase 3 of you know, activating it once again and bringing it back. Each one of them is so very unique, and that phase 3 is where the progress, I would say, really tends to slow down because each one of those get into a unique situation. Big Nahant really has a lot of work to do on phase 1 and 2.
Right.
We haven't really done that yet. So this grant is, or this application is really geared towards looking at Big Nahant and trying to do phase 1 for the entirety of Big Nahant. If there's additional funds left over, we may be able to get into phase 2 of on-site surveying of some of those rights of ways in Big Nahant. But again, much more work to be done. I'm sure there'll be additional applications in the future, you know, for phase 3 as we work our way through, you know, each one of these and try to find, you know, the best path forward to getting them open to the public again. But a huge element, as you mentioned, Barbara, is once we do that title research, taking that information, creating whether it's a GIS layer on the GIS map on our website or some other user-friendly mapping. That's a big part of it. That's a big part of what the selectmen want to see from this project.
Excellent. Thank you.
Tony, this is Dana. I have a question about I don't know if it's a right of way. I think it is a right of way. It goes from Cary Street down to East Point. Well, the town has, I guess it used to be a boardwalk there, but now they have, is that going to be part of this sort of? Because houses have been built along that.
Yeah,
way.
it's like a coastal
Right.
path, right along the edge of, so that'll definitely be part of the title research. If we're able to get into where that one will where you'll truly start to get answers on that one is when you do on the site surveying. Because a lot of those coastal paths have eroded over time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean they get bumped back and you get to take from the private property behind them.
Got
So
it.
that's, it'll definitely be part of our process, but you know, like I said, each one of these are so unique. You find out what challenges you may come across with each one as you get into the weeds of them.
Okay.
That particular one, Dana, I can tell you about, speaking of weeds, there's no hope. Every year it disappears, because I remember when I was a kid, you could easily walk. I mean, I don't think there's any hope to reclaiming that as a right of way. We'll see, but
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm with you, Deborah. I used to go down from 40 steps and go back along that, climbing the rocks to go to the house at Spouting Horn where I was living. And that is just all gone.
and then some.
And then some, yeah. I was kind of reckless then.
Yeah, it's,
Well,
I understand, and you folks are familiar with that area, but I was just wondering if this was gonna be part of the research. That,
Yeah.
the question, really.
Yeah. Yep, it definitely will be. The big title research on Big Nahant is the bulk of this application of all, you know, rights of ways and public access points and things of that nature. Whether we have additional funds to do some on the site surveying or additional funds to create some signage or mapping, that'll be, we'll see, I guess, how far the budget goes as we go through the process.
Okay. Any other questions about this one? Right, then let's go to the next one, number 8. This is $25,000 from fiscal year 2024. Again, we're just drawing from our existing funding sources. And this is under the historic preservation category. This is for the transforming the currently vulnerable town of Nahant vital records from 1980 to the present into a format that will ensure their preservation for all mandated as well as historical purposes. Our town clerk has you know, Diane Dunphy has provided this application. Some of you may remember that if from 2014 to 18, we did $140,000 worth of records preservation and digitalization. And this will kind of continue that tradition. This is quite a long supporting statement because, you know, it's perhaps not unusual for people to say, oh my gosh, you know, how is it that you're needing to spend this money to preserve fairly current records? But in fact, that is necessary to actually make these records permanent public records available to all, as well as, you know, serving the kind of basically the state requirements for filings and notifications.
Where are these available, or where will these be available?
They'll be available online as well as actually for review in person at the town hall vault.
So online at the town website?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's part of that genealogical as well as, you know, all kinds of other aspects. If somebody is doing a sociological study of birth and death patterns in Nahant and so on, well, this is the place to go looking.
And will there be a link to the Historical Society, Julie?
from the town,
Yeah,
that is not in the plan at the moment.
but don't you think that would be a good idea?
It'd be a very good idea, but that would be down the road.
Okay, but I'd like to,
On the society's end, I can tell you that would be down the road.
right, but I'm just saying, I think down the road, that would be a good plan.
Mhm. But they, I mean, they can access it on the town website as well, just as easily, but
Well, so maybe you don't need that, but maybe you could put, you and I can talk, but maybe you could put something on your website just telling people with a link, here's the town, here's the link to the town.
absolutely, yep.
Yeah, that'd make sense.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we have to worry about privacy for that? Is there information that's going to be digitalized that there's privacy concerns?
If
These
they're-
are public records.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Bob, if you don't mind, I've got a few more house cleaning items to take care of. So the next three articles, 9, 10, and 11, all deal with payments on existing bonds. The first one, there was a $350,000 bond authorized in 2022. We're going to be looking at the first payment of $52,850 on that bond. The next one was for $500,000 authorized in 2021, and that is going to be the second payment of $68,000, second year payment of $68,000 on that bond. And the last of this bunch is a bond of $400,000 taken in 2019. This will be the fourth year of payment, and that will be $50,152. Most of this money has gone into the public library building, and most of it has gone, I should say items 10 and 11 were for the public library. Number 9 funded some of the public library work as well as work at the town hall. And pending is work that needs to be done on the Green Lawn Cemetery archway. But these are all going towards town-owned buildings and town-owned responsibilities. And this is in the historic preservation category. So any questions about this? I haven't done the clawbacks analysis yet. I don't think there's a lot, quite honestly. I've worked with Alice and Nieto at Town Hall, just to look at how things are flowing in terms of, are we accomplishing work on the grants that we've already made? If the work is finished, can we sort of pull back money into the general fund? We did a fair amount of that kind of housekeeping last year. I don't think we've got a lot this year, but I will say that I haven't really dived into it with both feet. I put my head in the water, but I didn't sort of get completely submerged. So that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I have to say that I started to sort of look at the edits on, especially the first article on the multi-use flash court project. In about 7 minutes, I'm due to dive into a meeting of my committee. And I'll be able to actually work with them to actually just do the edits on that article. And there were a couple of other things that I glanced at as we were discussing this that just need a little bit of tuning up.
Yep. Okay. So, all right. So housekeeping or whatever, logistics. This year, the Finance Committee has been discussing, and I believe we will be implementing, a little bit different approach in that the book that we will be mailing to all of the townspeople will be an abbreviated book. It will have the essentials in it.
Mhm.
And I think the essentials include something like you've got here, where, you know, it's 3 to 5 pages, not 20 pages. And my memory is there's also a long version of this that we typically include in the book as well.
Yes, there's,
So then I guess let me finish the thought
Yeah.
too. All the stuff that you're used to seeing, the long version of the book, will be published online. And we will make a limited number of hard copies that if somebody really wants it, they could go to town hall or request it and get a printed copy of it. But you know, the mailed copy will be much shorter than traditional. So to fold kind of your work here into that format, I'm thinking something like this that you produced, we can include in what goes in the mail. And then the long version would be in the long version printed by request only kind of thing.
yes, well, every year I've actually begged to be, to be let out of this long, I think, probably 10-page synopsis that we have been accustomed to providing for the town warrant, which basically documents community preservation in Nahant from the very beginning. And it also looks at, what kinds of catalysts these grants have been for other funding and so on. I think what I'm hearing from you is that is going to be continued to be looked for, but made available electronically with just a few copies available in hard copy.
Yeah,
Unless you want to say, we don't know if we need to have 20 years of community preservation history coming to us time and again.
Before you answer that, and Lynn, please don't kill me for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about this a little bit, and I was wondering if, that appendix that you put together, it is tremendously useful. It's so great to be able to look at that each and every year and see how much, look at what projects have been approved in the past. And what the FinCom is trying to do is find, a smaller version of their book that actually gets mailed out to each resident. I was thinking, it would require you to continue the effort that you were just referring to, but maybe have a separate, instead of it being an appendix to the FinCom book, having a separate printed version, a separate book. That's just a CPC report, on an annual basis. And that's something that we could have printed and available the day of town meeting. It's something that we could have as its own document available on the website. And it would reduce, I think, pretty significantly the number of pages of the FinCom book.
Well, that's true, because I'm just looking at last year's warrant. It's about, this little insert in the back is about 20 pages. On the
Yeah.
other hand, we have been contributing the cost of printing of the town warrant because we take up so much space of it. So if we actually aren't doing it that way, you won't need our money.
we'll be needing less of your money.
Okay,
What if we have them pay for it all?
no.
Yeah, well,
Forget it.
Can we fill out an application for that?
No.
And
No, we're trying to save trees. I really do get it. And we're trying to save postage and all kinds of other good stuff. So I certainly appreciate what you're saying. And if I can put this off, 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks from my normal this is my hobby, I'd be happy to do that.
We
Like
also
my
do,
hobby.
right around the same time, every town meeting, we hand out not only hard copy versions of the FinCom book, but also the annual report.
Right.
And so that could also be, utilized as the document that contains the CPC historical record.
Is there any regulatory or statutory requirement for the long version CPC report?
Not that I know of. I work with many community preservation committees throughout the state in my professional life, and I've never seen anyone do something like this. I think this really started in Nahant, and we're a relatively small community, so it's not such a huge effort, although it's detailed. But I mean, we do have to file every year a report with the state of our activities, and this becomes very helpful towards feeding into that process. So it has its value. But I do appreciate what Tony is saying. I mean, I can look at this and I can immediately tell you, oh, in 2013 and in 2009, we gave rights of way funding, and here's how much we gave then, because I can flip it out very easily. So.
Yeah. This is what, 4 pages? I mean, to me, this would be perfect for including in the mailed version.
Yeah, and this is usually, yes, this is the first part of the book, and that's what we usually give you for, if you will, the articles under
Yep. Yeah.
consideration.
And
this
then,
will also include the clawbacks, correct?
Yes, if I have any, but yeah.
well, I was just going to say, you will historically also prepare just a summary analysis that says beginning balance,
I do.
right? And then it's broken into the 4 or 5 different categories.
Yes, and usually I have that actually in that appendix, Bob. So usually I have that at the very back of that diatribe of mine.
Well, could you just do that separately?
It looks like this. Oh, you can't see it, but it looks
Yes,
like
yeah,
that.
okay.
Yeah, I get really great help from Allison, and yeah. So that becomes a very easy summary table, and that could be like 1 page in your appendix.
Yeah, or less.
Well, it's hard to do in less than 1 page, but yes. If you allow me, I'll do 1 page.
Okay. All right. Rest of the committee, any other questions or?
No, I just appreciate all the
This
time.
is great.
Yep, I'm good.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent, Lynn. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Well, I've got a great committee, so excellent, great committee. But I'm going to jump into that committee meeting right now. So I'm going to say goodbye if I'm.
And please thank your committee from us.
I will. Thanks, Barbara. Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye,
bye.
everybody. Bye, everybody.
All right. Awesome. Are we comfortable voting that tonight?
I am.
I am.
Me too.
Me too.
Okay. Then what? Let's do this.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we
Wait,
approve.
well, hang on. Do we have to vote each one individually or?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Vote each one individually.
Why do we
Last year
do
we
that?
voted into,
Yeah, why do we do that if we,
Why,
We
why,
vote
why is that a habit or is that a requirement?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I mean,
Is it-
we vote each one individually at town hall. Does that mean we have to vote each one individually as a committee?
Each one usually has its own motion.
but it's one article, right?
It's one article with N sub-articles.
Right.
Whoops.
I mean,
We tried to do that before, and I
Well,
think we were instructed that we couldn't do that except with the clawback.
It's certainly safest to vote them separately, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Julie, you're right. We were told we could only do that with the clawbacks.
The
Yeah.
clawbacks are basically all the same thing.
Exactly.
These
They-
are all
we could, yeah.
individual.
I
So
have
we
a
have to
comment
vote
too.
each
I mean,
one.
in terms of the optics, I think we should vote them individually. It just makes more sense.
All right.
All right. I'm sorry to put you through this, but what do I have to do here?
If you pull it up, then we can read it and, you know,
Yep. Can you see that, or I don't know how
yes.
Zoom works? You can see
Yeah,
this?
I can see it. So
Yes,
Right.
I
All
make
right.
a motion that we approve the appropriation of $10,000 for the administrative and operating expenses for Community Preservation Committee.
I second.
Okay. Go back moving here. Beatty,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Vanderslide,
Aye.
Barba,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
McMacken,
Aye.
Zahora,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Carmy, aye. That's unanimous.
So before we
So-
go to the next item, is there any further discussion within the committee about item number 2?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I support it, but I'm really concerned about the scheduling and like it seems like there's some, like there needs to be a scheduling thing, but it's public property and
Right.
but you know what? I trust Tony. It goes through his office. I guess we have to trust in our leaders, and I trust them. So that being said, and we can discuss it. If there's further discussion, we could do it after I make the motion. But I make a motion that we approve the CPC item number 2 to appropriate the sum of $71,720 from FY 2024 community preservation estimated revenues. I don't know if I have to read more than that, for the upgrades to the Flash Road public tennis courts, to improve the tennis courts for playing pickleball.
Second.
Further discussion?
I just would like to say, I agree with you, Peter, that I think it's likely that the scheduling issue may turn out to be complicated. And that means there may be further discussion necessary. But I also trust Tony. And so Tony, I know you'll get back to us and it'll be somehow or other it'll get resolved, but I do think it's going to be more complicated than we
Barbara,
expect.
I agree with you. And if Tony's going to get back to us, I'd like to put this one on hold. This one doesn't make sense to me in that, from what I see, it's going to take a resource, our town resource. Also, when they talk about moving stuff back and forth, that's also going to take town resource to clean up. I think it's naive to think it's not going to take town resource.
According to what the pickleball people said, after playing pickleball, the pickleball people are responsible for putting the pickleball equipment away before the next group comes along. That's
So,
part of it.
and maybe I should have asked this question. So what does it mean by putting these away? Do these items,
The
like,
net.
is there, right, there's gonna be nets. Do the nets get rolled up and put in a bag and get left on the side of the court? Do they get put into a building? Do they get,
No, they'll have according to what I heard, they'll have a designated area on the court where they're put away. I don't know if they get chained up to the fence or how that's going to be.
Okay.
And, you know, as for the reservation system, regardless of what kind of system we come up with, it's going to be confusing at first. I lived in Swampscott for a few years ago, and I'm talking 50 years ago. And they had a reservation system for their tennis courts. And you had to either go down to town hall or you called town hall and you reserved the spot. And I think that's what they still do. So it is a system that can work. It just, you know, whether we do it physically through town hall, filling out a form online, or whether it's a reservation system that gets started up, it's going to be confusing in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure it's up to us to decide about that. What somebody said about leaving it to me makes sense. That can be decided, seems to me, down the line. I'm much more concerned about the cost of the lighting.
So if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. I think that the folks who submitted this application are not seeking to, you know, take over the court or, you know, and I don't think that, you know, there's been pickleball lines by tape installed on the court in a temporary fashion over the past summer. There's been no conflict between tennis and pickleball players. I think, honestly, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. And if it becomes an issue, it's in the Town Administrator Act that my office basically manage the use of the facility and make sure that it's also number one priority is available for public use. So not, you know, we're very careful about all of our sport facilities not being completely booked through the permitting process so that a group of kids can, you know, walk onto a basketball court or a baseball field or a tennis court or a pickleball court or whatever you want it to be. They have the ability to show up and play. You know, I have confidence that we'll be able to handle it. And without the need for a electronic reservation system. And if I'm wrong, then we'll figure it out. But I don't think it's gonna be that big of an issue.
And it's handled in your office. And as I said, I trust you.
So,
I trust you also.
like to be
I
recognized.
actually, I appreciate that. I appreciate that comment. I actually have the electronic reservation system. I think could lead to more problems than it being an open for public use type of facility. You know, where it almost, there's a lot of leagues that, you know, are not all just Nahant residents. There are leagues that extend into our neighboring communities that also have limited, you know, facility availability. And so, you know, I don't want to become a facility that a certain time slot is reserved for, you know, non-residents over residents being able to get down there and use the facility itself. I mean, it's the town that's paying for this facility. So, again, I think that if a pickleball group or league wanted to say, hey, we'd like to reserve the facility every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That would be a normal request. It's the same thing as soccer, softball, baseball. You know, we'd gladly accommodate that. if we had an electronic system that you could reserve every single hour of the day, I think that's where it gets kind of problematic. You want to really, the primary use of that facility should be walk on and open to the public.
Hey, Tony, this is Dana. Can I ask you if, is it possible for you as in your management of the playing time? Can you reserve some time for kids after school, say, that they have priority, but if they're not there, pickleball people can go play, but local kids have the priority to use the courts.
Yeah, we just wouldn't issue a permit for those hours.
Okay. Sounds good
Or,
to me.
and then like, I think Peter had brought up like Park League is usually in the summertime, weekday, in the morning,
Yep.
we'd probably there'd probably be a permit, we really don't typically issue a permit to them. It's just kind of past practice that they have, right and usage to the courts during that time because they would have lessons for tennis, or they'd use the basketball court for kickball or,
Right.
any other
That whole-
type of activity.
Yeah, that whole area, should almost be designated, and again, I think it's like 9 to 12, or maybe it's 8 to
Yeah.
12.
9 to
That
12.
is 9 to 12. That whole area should be designated as Park League space, all inclusive. That way there, it doesn't, because again, even if somebody went over there and wanted to play tennis as an adult, hey, I want to go play tennis, on Thursday morning, I got the day off. People really shouldn't be in there, kind of disrupting Park League. They, just my opinion being a former member of the rec committee.
Yeah, and
I
and honestly, it's the Park League directors, they pretty much handle that on site. So if they had a group that was going to go utilize the tennis court and there was a couple people in there, they'd say, hey, we have the court at this time, and it's never an issue. So I feel like we've always been able to manage it. I understand we're adding a new use and it's very popular sport, but I don't see why we couldn't all figure out a way to make it work without the need to go to some sort of electronic reservation system.
I'd like to go back to Deborah's question about the lighting. And I hear you, Deborah, and I have thought, I have some concerns, and I wish there'd be a way, and Lynn isn't here anymore, that it could be emphasized somehow that we don't have, this is the top spending. We don't have to spend this, Tony, right? This whole amount.
Exactly.
And two, I wish that there could be a statement in here that we would get the lighting for the least amount possible to be okay, that we're not going for fancy lighting. And Lynn said that, but I would like to emphasize that. I think that's important. If we could bring this in for less than 70, or is it 8?
Oh, yeah.
That would be good. And the lighting is a big chunk of it. I agree with you, Deborah. I'd like to make sure, because sometimes as projects move along, costs get fancy. I would just like it to be in what we pass, that we're going for kind of the least appropriate that we can get that'll work, least workable, whatever. I don't want I don't want the lighting to be that fancy expensive.
Right. I think a lot of the estimates that were included in the original application for lighting had to do, they were really kind of like high level estimates. What Zach and I looked at was, the applicants may not have realized that there isn't electricity in that area of the court currently. And they may have assumed that because there are actually old light poles on the woods side of the courts. But those, you'd have to run all new underground conduit, to wherever these poles are gonna set. You're gonna have to install footings, poles, lights. It's, that project can quickly get expensive. So we tried to put a little better of an estimate behind it. But of course, Zach and I are always cautious about, getting the best, price for our dollar, and we'll certainly, seek to do, what's the least impactful to the neighborhood, what's the least expensive, but also serves, the purpose of the investment. And really, the painting piece, painting that size of a court could cost anywhere from, $10,000 to $12,000. Just adding lines could cost less than $5,000. What we don't know is, will they, a painter might come in, that paint, it's like a thick rubbery application. So it may not lay down on top of, the paint that was put down last year easy. They may need to paint the entire area again. So that's why there's a big variation there. And we just wanted to make sure we had funds for that if it was necessary. But obviously, if we don't need to do that, we won't.
I call the question.
Okay,
Okay,
so the motion
Oh,
is to approve by Barbara.
nope, point
do
of
we
order.
have a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Point of order. When somebody calls the question, you have to vote on calling the question first.
Correct.
Correct.
Good point.
Okay.
So the vote is to call the question.
All the questions.
And actually, another point of order, do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
I made
Okay,
a motion. Yes.
Okay. then we can call the question.
All
And I
right,
believe this is a 2/3 vote, people, to call the question.
okay. So Barbara,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren. I didn't hear you, Deborah.
Oh, sorry, aye.
Charmy, aye. Dora,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
All right,
Back to the main motion.
we are back to the main motion. So there's a motion that has been seconded to approve this,
And this one's a majority vote.
and this is a simple majority.
Barbara,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Sheehan votes aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Dora,
Aye.
Charmy, aye. Unanimous.
All right, excellent. On to number 3.
Yeah, can you slide it up and I'll make the motion? Oh, wait, you went too far.
I went too far. I know.
All right, I make a motion to approve item number 3, which is to appropriate the sum of $23,775 from fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenues for the purpose of completing a halfway completed project of restoring and digitizing badly degraded historical records, which were the Nahant school registers from 1963 to 1968.
I
So
second.
moved.
Yeah, and I second.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry, you made the motion. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right.
That's all right.
We like it.
Barbara,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Dora,
Aye.
Carmy, I am abstaining because it's my request. So that's 8-1.
Okay.
All right.
Carry. Number 4.
I'm making a motion to approve item number 4, to appropriate the sum of $46,500 from fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenues to continue the restoration work at Fort Ruckman section of the east slope of Bailey's Hill.
I'll second.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
Carmy, I, unanimous.
Item number 5, I make a motion to appropriate the sum of $29,000 from fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenues to carry out the restoration projects at Lodge Park on East Point. This involves trail route redesign and natural restoration to improve safety as well as introduction of new signage.
I'll second that. Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
Carmy, I, unanimous.
All right, item number 6.
Hang on, Peter. There we go.
Item number 6, I make a motion to appropriate, to approve the item number 6, to appropriate the sum of $50,000 from fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenue for the planting of trees at Kelly Greens and restoration of 3 pedestrian bridges.
Second.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
Carmy, I, unanimous.
Hey, so Peter, I'd like to do number 7. It's kind of a pet project of mine, or in my mind anyway.
Go for it. I was just doing it so we can move along, but go ahead.
I move to approve item number 7 of sub-articles in the Community Preservation Fund article to appropriate the sum of $20,000 for fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenue for the planning and implementation of the town's rights of way.
I want to second that. Yes.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
Carmy, I, unanimous.
I'll jump back in, Dana, if that's okay, or if you want to move on, I don't care.
No,
But-
have at it,
okay.
Peter. Thank you.
All right, I want to make a motion to approve item number 8, which is to appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the fiscal year from the fiscal 2024 community preservation estimated revenues for the purpose of transforming currently vulnerable town of Nahant vital records 1980 to present into a format that will ensure their preservation for all mandated as well as historical purposes.
I'll second that. Okay.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
Carmy, I, unanimous.
Let's see, item number 9, I make a motion to, that we approve item number 9, which is to appropriate for the payment of debt service of principal and borrowing on the $350,000 Town Hall and Green Lawn Cemetery entrance archway bonding authorized by the 2022 annual town meeting.
I'll second.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderside,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zahora,
Aye.
Carmy, aye, unanimous.
Before we go on to number 10, can I just make a comment to the committee? These are a couple of bonding issues for the public library. So the town is, in all its generosity, is borrowing $900,000 to renovate the library. So I see a lot of support there. It's just a comment. So I make a move to appropriate the payment of debt service of principal and borrowing on the $500,000 public library bonding authorized by the 2021 annual town meeting, Article 21E.
I'll second that.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderside,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zahora,
Aye.
Carmy, aye, unanimous.
Take the next one, Dana. It's library.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I move to approve sub-article number 11 to appropriate for the payment of debt service of principal and borrowing on the $400,000 public library bonding authorized by the 2019 annual town meeting, Article 16C, a sum of $50,152 from the fiscal year 2024 community preservation estimated revenues for the fourth year of bond payments.
I'll second.
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderside,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Zahora,
Aye.
Carmy, aye, unanimous.
Excellent. So that is done.
Awesome.
We move on. We have approved like almost everything that we can approve to this point,
Right.
except for short-term rental. I'm going to come back to that in just a second, but the rest of these things, we kind of have to wait until we get some more information. So we're in reasonably good shape here. I'm just going to ask the question before I go on. Can everybody make Thursday's meeting?
I am I'm up in the air. I'm having arthroscopic surgery on my knee on Thursday. I'm gonna be home. I just don't know what I think I'll be okay. My doctor said I'll be able to walk in and walk out. So I may be in a little bit of pain. I may be on some medication, but I'll make every effort to be here.
Okay, cool.
Hope it
All right.
goes well.
More funner meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, it sounds like everyone can be there. Should we postpone the short-term rental discussion until Thursday night since it's already?
Yes, please.
I was
Yes, I
hoping
think
you'd
that's a
say
wise
that.
decision.
Yeah.
Started off
Um,
with fresh
right.
energy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing, Bob, excuse me.
Yep.
Can I ask you, I mean, at the end of last week's meeting, the committee decided to take a non-binding vote to amend the short-term rentals, and you were going to talk to the other.
Yep.
on
And
the
I was just about to report back on that. So
Okay, fine,
I have-
sorry,
Yeah,
Bob.
yeah, no, it's okay. I've spoken to Wayne Wilson. I have traded voicemails with Tony, but I think Tony is still with us, so he can chime in. And I've traded text messages with Rob Steinberg. And let's see. Wayne, basically, I asked two questions. One about the notion that the special permit should expire after some period, probably 3 years. That was question one. And question two was the community impact fee. And I think the consensus really among the three of them is, as far as the special permit expiring after 3 years was why, what purpose would that serve? The objective is really to have an ongoing review and a mechanism by which we can control or revoke the use of that. And that's what the annually expiring license fee is all about. So the feeling that their feeling was having the special permit expire really wouldn't add to that in any meaningful way, and would add burden, additional work for the ZBA, who would be responsible now for reviewing these things as they came up for renewal every 3 years.
So Bob, we haven't seen that. Those, regulations haven't been propagated or shared with us. We haven't seen what they are. So
Understood. I'm at this point,
it's vaporware at this point. We don't know.
I'm kind of the messenger at this point.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say that to the committee, like,
Yeah.
that's a response, but we don't see those regulations and, the way the bylaw is written, if they're not there, they won't be there.
I thought the short-term rental committee proposal suggested an annual licensing in the general bylaw section of their proposal. And I know the citizens petition did.
I'm pretty sure it does. I would have to go back and look at it. I also forwarded in email the planning board's statement on this, which they endorse the short-term rental committee's article. And they also provided a short comparative summary too. Hallelujah. God bless them.
Lovely.
So check email for that one.
Michelle has her hand up.
And no, wait, hang on. I
Oh,
will.
sorry.
I will recognize. So that was the reaction to the idea of expiring the special permit, and then the impact fee. Always kind of, that's a good idea. Wayne's comment was, well, that's maybe not really the purview of his committee. That's part of the fee structure, which is on the general bylaws side, not.
Yeah, we could add that to the, we could make a motion to add that. There's a list of requirements in the bylaw, and we could add it as number 9.
Well, okay, and
But can we add things to there?
well, yeah, exactly. All we can do is ask that it be added. As I understand this, Tony, you're going to have to chime in on this one when I'm done. This is the selectmen's article. This is not the short-term rental committee's article. This is the selectmen's article, correct?
So you can't make any changes, even a capital letter, to the citizens petition. That's set in stone.
Right, that's set in stone. Yeah.
The short-term rental committee was formed by a previous town meeting to draft bylaws to be presented at a future town meeting. So they are the only entity that could amend the recommendation, the recommended language of the article. And even at this point, they're limited to only the general bylaw part, because the zoning bylaw part required a planning board hearing and recommendation. But what I think Dane is suggesting, you wouldn't have to amend, actually, you wouldn't want to amend their article at all. I think what you want to, if the community impact fee is something that the finance committee would like to see, you could simply make a request to the selectmen to include it as a separate article in the warrant. And if you look at the document that Allison sent you last Thursday, it talks about the community impact fee. And there's two different, the community impact fee is a total of 3% that would ride on top of the already approved and existing rooms tax, local rooms tax that the town accepted at a previous town meeting.
But not for all properties, only for certain ones.
There's, if you read it, it's a little, I haven't really fully dived into it. It's a little tricky. It seems like it's a total of 3%. And I don't know if there's like two separate votes that you would take. There's the first part of the community impact fee, and then there's the second one. And I don't know if it's split 1.5 and 1.5 or what, but yeah, you're right. The first one talks about specific types of properties and what it would apply to. And the second one's a little bit different. Take a look at that document. So if it's something that the finance committee wanted the town to take up as an issue, I think you would just simply request it of the Board of Selectmen to add it to the warrant. It would be
Can I make
a
that motion
separate
now?
article. It'd be a separate article from the policy stuff with the short-term rental committee and the
This comment's directed to the committee then. Does anybody feel comfortable making that vote tonight, or want to wait till Thursday and we can ask the selectmen to add a separate article to include the community impact fee?
We know the mechanism, and I think we should just table the conversation.
agree.
of the whole
Agreed.
topic.
I agree.
Table
I
it.
agree too.
I agree, but I also think with Dana that we need to make sure that this comes up at our next meeting. So
Okay, we can,
let's make sure. So if you bring it up again, please, Dana, it's important.
all right. Want to postpone definitely then till Thursday?
Yes, and then bring it up then.
Yep.
All right, so we got to vote on that.
Yeah, and then I think we should make a decision on this on Thursday too.
Yes.
I agree.
Try to look at that document that Allison sent you last Thursday. There's some interesting information in there. When I looked through it with Allison, I had some questions that I might want to ask Division of Local Services for a little bit more clarification on how it works. There's also some information in there about how you're able to utilize the funding. 35% of it can go towards infrastructure or housing, while the other 65% can go into the general fund. And we haven't done any analysis on, how much additional funds that would bring in or anything like that yet. So take a look at that document. Allison and I will also do some follow-up research and be prepared for Thursday.
Thanks. So I make a motion to postpone definitely the question about community impact fee until Thursday, March 30th.
I second that.
Julie, this is your
Roll
cue.
call vote.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why we need a motion on that.
It
Yeah,
can't
can't we
hurt.
just do it?
Yeah, it can't hurt.
Okay. Barba,
Aye.
Beatty,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Vanderslice,
I
Warren,
Aye.
Zohora,
Aye.
and Thank you.
Harley.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry, Julie.
Okay.
Sounds like unanimous vote in favor, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
Michelle had her hand up a while ago. I don't know whether we've moved on from whatever it was, but Michelle.
Oh, thanks, Bob. No, I think we're all set. I think the only thing I would ask that, and Tony, maybe this is something that you're able to cover, but what does the community impact fee distinguish between short-term and long-term rentals? Because from what I've reviewed, it doesn't. And so whatever is recommended under short-term rentals, we may need to think about how it applies to long-term rentals in the process in which we have long-term rentals in the community. And the other piece of this is, and I'm not sure if the board's aware, but that 35% of what's collected in the community impact fee can be allocated to affordable housing or local infrastructure projects. So how will we set up a separate account that tracks and maintains that for the affordable housing side, which is of concern to me and my other role?
You'll be here on Thursday, Michelle?
Yes, I will.
I think that that's something that you should bring up then, both those points.
Okay,
Please,
Important.
please do.
okay.
I think it does, Michelle. I think it's only applies to short term.
Only to short term? Okay.
Yep.
And that's great. And I guess the other piece is ensuring that the town sets up a separate account that tracks and maintains that for the affordable housing side. You know, that's gonna be my sweet spot for the next time, period of time. I know Rob had sent you the comparison document that I put together. I am making revisions to that. It's not final and it is not ready to be available for the warrant. I think someone had recommended putting it as an appendix, so I'm happy to support that. But I would just ask, depending what the outcomes of coming out of Thursday's discussion, it may need to be updated, and I'm happy to take care of that and then get it back to this committee and the planning board.
That is fabulous, Michelle, that chart that you've made.
Yeah, it's very good.
All right.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bob.
sure. And thank you. All right. So short-term rental next Thursday, 2 days from now. Public forum. We still have a number of members of the public. So hearing and seeing none, I think a motion to adjourn is in order.
I
So
motion that
moved.
we adjourn.
Second,
Barba,
Aye.
Bartlett,
Aye.
Beatty,
aye.
Mackin,
Aye.
Sheehan,
Aye.
Vanderside,
Aye.
Warren,
Aye.
Lahora,
Aye.
Carmy, aye. Well, again, unanimous.
Excellent. So thank you all. I will see you on Thursday.
See you on
Everybody have a
Thursday.
good
Bye,
night.
guys. Thank
Yep.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Good night.